When I'm honest with you, am I doing you a favor? When I'm honest with you, am I just giving you something you're already entitled to, as if there's a debt between us, as if honesty is something you are owed, as if I would be ripping you off by being dishonest? From early childhood forward, we're conditioned to think about telling the truth in these fundamentally misleading ways. When I choose to be honest with you, a stranger in the audience, with my girlfriend who's sitting here just off camera, right, I am practicing. I am exercising. I am conditioning myself to be the person I want to be. Even in engaging in a fantasy, even in the selection of what it is you're going to think about when you masturbate, you're actually making a choice that has long-term consequences and profound implications for what kind of man or woman you want to be. We're dealing with both the practical and philosophical implications of Melissa's long history of cheating on me. But as many of you in the audience will leap forward to clarify, she managed to cheat on me over the internet without actually laying hands on another man's penis. She asked me an interesting question one day when we were having a fairly philosophical discussion about this, frankly. Sometimes there's weeping, sometimes not all the time. She said, well, come on, Zell, let's be honest. Don't you sometimes think about getting another woman pregnant with your baby when you masturbate? Don't you sometimes think about getting another woman pregnant when you're making love to me? She didn't say I'm making love to her. And then there were other questions in parallel that are well worth asking. Don't you sometimes fantasize about rape? We could throw in murder or other terrible things. And I answered, no. I would never allow myself to do that even once. And the reason is not because the fantasy is evil in itself, but because indulging in that kind of fantasy is practice, is exercise. It is you conditioning yourself to be the kind of person you want to be. And you have to ask yourself, is this really the person I want to be? The person Melissa is today is very much the result of decisions she made over the last 5 years. She's constructed the person she is today, ethically, intellectually, aesthetically, so many ways, emotionally, especially her emotional character today is the result, is the accumulated consequence of decisions she made over the last 5 years. And her peculiar form of cheating on me over the internet with these other men. The first time, she just got this guy excited, sending him a voice recording of herself. No video, no photographs. She recorded her voice masturbating when thinking about him and sent it to him. Now, if I had done that with another woman, Melissa would have been devastated. Melissa would have been horrified. Melissa would have looked at me and said in whatever words, you are not the man I thought you were. You're not the man I want to have a baby with. You're not the man I want to be in this way. It would have been a shocking act of betrayal for Melissa if I even did what she did with that first guy. But that wasn't the last guy. She was practicing. And she was practicing lying to me. She was practicing dishonesty, deception, manipulation, gaslighting, which would get worse and worse and worse with the subsequent examples of men she attempted to fascinate over the internet. One of whom, by the way, totally refused to have anything to do with this kind of exchange of nude images, videos, masturbating. One of these guys just completely kept it at the level. He just wanted to have an intellectual relationship with Melissa. And when Melissa tried to sexualize it, tried to ask that, he kept refusing. And ultimately he said, look, I'm just not attracted to you. I'm not interested. He was just trying to have an intellectual relationship with Melissa, even though that's not what she wanted from it. But my point is, the decisions she made, the compromises she made, and the way in which she became accustomed to lying to me, step by step by step, she was practicing to become the person she is today. And now she looks in the mirror and she beholds with horror who it is she's become and what she's done to me and what the consequences are for our relationship. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter what my attitude is. It doesn't matter how hurt I am or how capable I am of setting aside this personal tragedy and moving on. To what extent I can cope with the psychological damage done to me. Okay? She can't cope with the psychological damage she has done to herself that I had nothing to do with. This was done in secret while hiding in a bathroom, this kind of thing, sneaking away to the gym bathroom. This was all conducted behind closed doors without my knowledge or consent. These are decisions. It's her actions and my consequences, you know. I'm stuck with, but this is something she did completely independently. It's easy for me to tell the truth because I have a lot of practice. It's easy for me to be honest about things that most people find very hard to be honest about because I have a lot of practice. And Melissa started making the decision. She started practicing now 4.5 years ago, roughly. Well, 4.5 years ago, she started practicing dishonesty, lying to me, deceiving me, hurting me, punishing me. This whole really sad cycle of negative behavior that she will say herself, I did nothing to deserve. And it began with one voice message, not even video, not even photos, one voice message sent to one man where she told that guy that she had masturbated thinking about him. Again, if I had done this with a woman I was flirting with or pursuing, Melissa would have been horrified. Melissa has punished me for far less. Melissa has freaked out and punished me in a situation where I did nothing wrong, both at that time and many years later, okay? So Melissa was never interested in living up to the standards herself that she set for me to live up to. So this is the kind of box, right? What is wrong? What is immoral? What is the ethical problem with fantasizing about rape while you masturbate or fantasizing about rape while you have consensual sex with your girlfriend, wife? Okay? You are practicing. You are exercising. You are conditioning yourself to be the very different person you are going to be 5 years from now. And maybe today it is incomprehensible to you. It is unimaginable, it's unthinkable that you would ever rape someone. You start doing this every time you masturbate. You start indulging in this kind of fantasy when you have sex. After 5 years, it's something you've rehearsed a whole lot, isn't it, homie? You better watch out. This doesn't have to be sexual in nature. Do you let yourself indulge in revenge fantasies, murder fantasies? Do you let yourself indulge in fantasies about infidelity, which is what Melissa did, right? And of course, it wasn't just when she was online with these guys. It was when she was masturbating, and it was while I was making love to her sometimes. Right? She is thinking about betraying me. She's thinking about hurting me and breaking my heart by doing this behind my back. And she got used to it. She got accustomed. She felt entitled to it as something normal for her to do. And in the end, it wasn't something she did once, wasn't something she did 10 times, something she did hundreds of times. Again, with the caveat, all on the internet. Never actually touched another man's penis. But I know what she said to those men. I've seen the actual messages. I've heard some of the audio recordings, right? What she is actually saying to them about me makes it so much worse. The nature of the betrayal. Okay? But because Melissa saved the text messages and saved the audio recordings, not all of them, but thousands and thousands of them, we can look at the etiology of how that developed. What does etiology mean? A series of stages that a disease progresses through, right? So like with cancer, you have an etiology. It starts off looking like a black dot, progresses through various stages, okay? And this began with a simple, self-indulgent act of betrayal that she wanted one man's attention. She wanted one man to tell her that she was hot and that he had ejaculated looking at her picture. And she got hooked on it. And she started doing it again and again and again. And she started doing it with more men. And again, even the one guy who refused to have anything like that with her, I can see, and she's trying to do the same thing. It's the same addiction. She's just got a less compliant partner that she's cheating on me with. Okay, let's say 5 years ago. 5 years ago, it was inconceivable to Melissa that she would tell another man that she wanted to get pregnant with his baby, that she would tell another man that she masturbated thinking about getting pregnant with his baby, that's what turned her on, and then she'd want to see his reaction, that she'd want him to film himself masturbating and ejaculating in the toilet and just know that he was looking at pictures of her vagina and masturbating. Okay, so 5 years ago, that was inconceivable. It seemed ridiculous and so immoral. And she would never allow me to do some of that. She would never allow her best friend. She would think her best friend was totally immoral if her best friend told her she was doing this, cheating on her boyfriend. Okay, 5 years ago, inconceivable. 4 years ago, seems completely natural and normal to her. She conditioned herself this way. And I've seen the messages she wrote to two of the men. And there may be others. I haven't read all the messages. But, to two of the men where she is complaining about my bad attitude because if I knew, I wouldn't let her do this. Like that morally, there's something wrong with me. Okay? Some forms of infidelity, the only consequences have to do with trust, emotions, attitudes. Okay? If I had a one-night stand with another woman, let's say it lasts 4 hours on one night, there might be no consequences at all, frankly. Melissa might be cool with it, or might shrug her shoulders and say, well, what Melissa did and the way in which this occupied her attention 12 hours a day, from the moment she woke up from 8 a.m. to midnight, the way in which this obsession took over her life, it is impossible for me to exaggerate to you how this has destroyed any chance she has of ever having a career. And I do not mean I am punishing her. I do not mean I am preventing her. During those years, I was encouraging her again and again to go back to university and get a career. And she didn't want that. What she wanted was to spend all these hours sending men she had no respect for, men she didn't even like, men she didn't think were intelligent, men she didn't think were handsome, men she regarded as kind of despicable and pitiable, sending these men photographs of her vagina just to hear back from them that they had masturbated looking at them, or just to get back a photograph or video of the man proving, I suppose, that he masturbated looking at this picture. For her, that became normal, and it became more important than all her promises to me, more important than her relationship with me, and more important than her own future career, future intellectual development. Okay? I knew an old German guy. He was a child during World War II, but he had a lot of memories of the Nazi period and blah, blah, blah. What he always said to me in German was, wäre an die Anfänger. He felt the problem with the Nazi movement was that everyone shrugged it off and didn't take it seriously at the beginning. They ignored the warning signs that were there. Okay? A lot of these things begin with fantasy. And if you are asking the question, what is the harm of fantasy? How can a fantasy be ethically bad when it has no real world consequences? Okay? What you fantasize about, what you think about when you masturbate, okay? It has a consequence. The consequence is you. The person produced by your fantasies is you. If you become addicted masturbating, looking at rape porn, if you become addicted to fantasizing about rape, that is who you become, right? Whether or not you ever take the next step to actually be a rapist, okay, you have taken several steps down that path. And you know, instead the step you should have taken in the opposite direction, you should have taken the step of saying, I would never do this. I would never let myself, not even once, because that is not who I want to be. That's not who I want to become. All of us every day are degenerating. You are a degenerate. You are now a fucking mockery of the ideals you once believed in. You have become a caricature of your former self. Okay? But also, each and every one of us every day is evolving. Evolving how? Evolving intellectually, evolving ethically, evolving emotionally. All right? How you feel today, your emotional character, really is the product, really is the result of accumulated decisions you made over the last 5 years. Really quick examples. If it becomes normal for you to lie to your girlfriend so you can sneak away and play video games, a lot of you guys have done that for a period of 5 years. Well, guess who you are today? Guess what kind of a person you developed into, intellectually, ethically, and emotionally. Guess how you feel, the lived experience, how you feel today, what you feel guilty about and what you don't feel guilty about at all. For example, the lived experience of who you are emotionally in this moment, right? It's something you have conditioned yourself for. You have been engaged in training for this moment now, every day over the last 5 years. All right? And if the code you live by is, I would be willing to have sex with another woman, but I would never lie to my girlfriend about it. I'd be willing to have sex with another woman while all three of us are in the room together. To live outside the law, you must be honest. I would never lie to either woman. I would never betray either woman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, you've got a code that you live by. All right? What if you start fantasizing about getting another woman pregnant? What if you start fantasizing about betraying your girlfriend and running away and getting married to someone else in the middle of the night? She doesn't even know it's coming. She's shocked. What if you're fantasizing about hurting her, devastating her emotionally, betraying her? Okay? Over time, who do you become? How do you feel? All right? Philosophically and pragmatically, that's the problem we're dealing with right now. Because the reality is Melissa doesn't like who she is anymore. Melissa, who you are today is the result of decisions you made. It's not what I chose. This isn't the life I wanted you to have. Right?
No.
But who you are today and how you feel and what you're now dealing with.
It's the result of my choices.
Lay it on them. What you got to say?
I hope it's okay that I say this. It's a conversation that Isel and I had, or I was thinking hypothetically, what if I had this fascination with taking pictures of myself naked, but I had only used a camera that was a digital
Right.
camera, not connected to the internet,
Right.
not a cell phone that has internet connection.
Right.
if I had used a computer with no
Right.
internet connection,
Right.
if I had just been doing this on my own as a personal hobby to document what I looked like at these different ages, because I have naked photos of myself going back to when I was 18.
Yeah.
And prior to getting naked on camera, I have photos of myself from the age of, I don't know, 10 with a digital camera. You know, like I have photos of my face. I used to take photos of my face, and you know, obviously sometimes with friends too. It wasn't just by myself, but yeah,
Okay.
sure. I
So
took-
the question you asked is basically, what if nobody had ever seen these naked pictures? What if you'd filmed yourself masturbating, filmed yourself being naked, filmed yourself making a kind of pornography,
yes.
but you kept it totally to yourself? Go on, yeah.
Right. If I had never filmed myself having sex with my ex-boyfriend,
Right.
if I hadn't sent
Right.
naked pictures to anybody online, what would be the harm?
Right.
And you made a point which I wouldn't have come to myself. I have to admit that. I
Right.
wouldn't. I am too stupid. I am too immoral. I wouldn't have thought of it myself, but you said that doing that is practicing.
Yeah.
And it led to doing what you did. It
Right.
led you to make the decision to share the photo with a stranger you'd never met
Right.
in person.
Right.
And it also is a vain hobby.
Right.
It isn't practicing any of the more ethical
Or
and
intellectual.
intellectual pursuits that
Right.
one should care about.
But that's what made that conversation so tragic. Like, she was saying that to me with good intent. She was really asking a philosophical question with good intentions. But you're asking, well, what would be the harm in taking nude photos or filming yourself masturbating if she didn't send it to these men cheating on me? But the reality is that is what she'd already done for years leading up to this.
Yes.
And that was her practicing. That was her conditioning herself. And that was you conditioning yourself to be so desperate to do this. You know, the first day you sent a video of yourself masturbating to Abhishek, you told him, I think just a few minutes earlier, you said to him, well, the most beautiful part of my body is not safe for work, is an SFW, and you're not going to see it for a long time. Like, you're not going to see it till you see me in person. Right? And then, like, a couple minutes later, you're whipping out the camera, you're sending him photos you're sending video of yourself masturbating. You had conditioned yourself for years to want that in the same way that someone would condition themselves with rape fantasies
Yeah.
before actually carrying out a rape, or condition themselves with fantasies of hurting, of horrifying their husband or wife, of hurting their partner by cheating on them and getting pregnant with someone else's baby. And that's a really sick fantasy that you managed to build up in your mind. Go on, yeah.
Yeah, it is a sick fantasy. And it is completely vain
Right.
to want
Right.
to know that somebody is looking at a picture of your vagina
Right.
and masturbating.
Right. And look, sorry guys, I like to criticize myself in this context. You know what my sexual fantasy is? That I have people involved in my life who've like read and appreciated the books I've written. Like, there's vanity involved there. I write a book. I want people to send me email telling me how much they appreciate the book or how meaningful what. That's right, you know. But even if I can criticize myself this way, say vanity. Okay, I want to have relationships with women that are based on my intellectual character, my moral character, my attempts to make the world a better place, my ambitions. Put it that way. Women who appreciate me for my ambitions, for my intellectual, for all those things. I do not want to be in a relationship with a woman who masturbates looking at photographs of my erect penis. That's not the basis for the relationship going forward, you know? And by the way, I have had women have written into me to this YouTube channel telling me that they think about me when they masturbate. Whether in some cases they said they masturbate while watching the videos on this channel. In some cases it was more psychologically complex or more, you know. But yes, I have received messages like that, even though I try to keep this channel non-pornographic. So it's a real, you know, it exists. But no, for you, vanity was not something you struggled against, right? You were a very vain you know,
It's okay. Tell me what's on your mind.
no, how am I going to say it? I mean, what all of this, what the last 4 years prove. It's 4 years out of our 7 years together.
Yeah.
You hated and resented me for my encouraging you to have a career, my encouraging you to get more education, and we mean formal education here, enrolling in university programs and so on. You hated and resented that, and all that you wanted was for a man to tell you, you're beautiful just the way you are, you can just be a housewife because you have this amazing vagina. It's all about how her vagina looks, by the way. And by the way, she does have a really great looking vagina. I'm not going to lie. If you look up Nancy Ace and then look up Mary Queen, I can spell those for you if you want. She's about halfway. Look at the vagina of Nancy Ace. Look at the vagina of Mary Queen. It's about 50% of one, 50%. It's about in the middle between those two. If you want to visualize what Melissa's vagina is, she has a great looking vagina. It's true. But you hated and resented the life of the mind. That all you wanted was to have this very teenage sense of your vanity gratified again and again and again. And you would say anything to do that.
Babe, you have an amazing cock. I don't have porn stars memorized right now to give any example to the audience,
Yeah.
but incredibly aesthetically.
And she knows cock, okay?
Yeah. So, but my point in saying that is not to praise your cock,
right,
which
right.
is beautiful and amazing, and I'm obsessed with it, and I'm addicted to your cock. Let's just say that. Yes. That's not the point. The point is that you are not on an ego trip about that.
Yeah.
And I understand you had some self-criticism there about like, well, okay, there is some vanity in wanting somebody to admire me because of my work.
Sure.
Because of my
accomplishments, ambitions, potential.
Yeah.
Because they appreciate me intellectually.
But that's so much better than just something I was born with, and I didn't work hard to have this vagina, So, yeah, and I could have put a lot more work into my musculature, into my physique.
Right.
I could have.
Right, but that wasn't the fantasy. Right. Your fantasy was that these guys worship you and masturbate looking at you just because of the way you are. And I've seen you say this to them explicitly, and you don't have to read a book, and you don't have to have a job, you don't have to like, that you are just wonderful the way you are, that you are just so sexy, you are just so attractive, nothing else matters. That's I'm paraphrasing, but that's the fantasy you spelled out, and that some of these guys let you act out to some extent.
Yes. Setting aside the life of the mind aspects, if I were to have been totally committed to the life of the body that way, if that was what I was thinking about, what I was fantasizing about, then I could have actually put in the hard work with my body, and that would have even made me a better person today than I am.
Right.
Because the kind of discipline needed in order to be a bodybuilder, that is more respectable than what I did. What I did is just the choices that I made are terrible. They're just so terrible.
But what I see you saying in the messages to these men, and you've said things like this to me directly, but not to go into details. What you say is, this is the life Eisel wants me to lead, and I don't want that. I want to be bad. That's the terrible reality of what you're saying here. What you're saying again, that's not what I choose. What I choose is to do the exact opposite, to destroy my relationship with Eisel forever, to never have a baby with him, never get married, never have a career, never have education, never develop even as a kind of author or creative artist or intellectual in your own right. That this instead is what you want. And I get it, that's a fantasy. That's just a fantasy. Like Melissa knows Melissa knows she isn't good looking to be a successful porn star and whatever. There are all kinds of ways in which the fantasy can never be reality. I get it. And she actually despises the particular men she's doing this masturbation with. There's another perverse aspect. Okay, I get it. But you are choosing the fantasy over reality. And for a period of 4 years, you let fantasy destroy reality. You sacrificed everything positive about reality for the fantasy again and again and again.
There's a phrase that you used. Can you say it again? To live outside the law.
To live outside the law, you must be honest.
Yeah. And I was dishonest. I was dishonest not only in what I said to you, I was dishonest in what I said to other men.
Yep.
And in effect, I was practicing that for years. I was practicing this vain,
Right.
masturbatory act, taking pictures of myself for years.
Right.
Behind closed doors, in secret.
And the
We
dishonesty
had-
crept into every part of our lives. Go on.
Yeah. We had a code.
Mm-hmm.
I agreed to the code.
And you wanted me to live by the code. She wanted me to obey the rules.
Right. Yes. But I disobeyed the code.
Yeah.
I dishonored the code. I dishonored our relationship. And I see now the man you are today is a result of you having control over your own desires, over your own thoughts, in a way that I never conceptualized. I allowed myself to think in ways that prepared me,
Yeah.
were training me to do this. It did surprise me when you said that you don't think about cheating on me when you masturbate. Because we had talked for a long time about our open relationship.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I did not get how to be honest. I had never practiced that. I had never practiced being honest about my sexuality. And a huge thing that I'd been hiding for a long time is my sexual desire for women. I
Yeah.
don't need to get into that. But I never was honest with anybody about that. I was never honest with myself. So the man that you are today is a result of honesty, even down to and including your
Yes.
thoughts. What you don't allow yourself to
Honesty,
think through.
even about my fantasies, even about my desires. And that's the most important thing of all, because your desires are going to shape the person you become.
Right.
So even, like, I just want to throw a couple non-sexual examples. Studying French. Do I really want to study French? How do I really feel about it? Do I feel like I'm forced into it by circumstance, or am I really motivated to study French? I've got to be honest with Melissa about that. I've got to be honest with myself. I've got to be honest with you in the audience. You know, that can be hard. I mean, it can be hard to admit that you're lazy. I have been to the gym thousands of times in the last 7 years. And very often I tell you how many push-ups I did. Do you think I've lied to you once?
No.
If I tell her I did 200 push-ups, I did 200 push-ups. If I tell her I did 170 push-ups and then I just ran, I couldn't do 200 push-ups, whatever it was. If I wanted, and I only did 10 push-ups, oh, you know, my digestion is bad. I am honest with you about how much or how little exercise I got at the gym every time. If I am reading a book, if I say to you, oh yeah, I got a lot of work done today. I went through 100 pages and I took notes and I learned a lot, and now I'm going to tell you about it. That's the truth. But maybe some other day it's like, oh, you know, I was distracted and upset and I really didn't get much reading done. Then that's the truth. You have never had to doubt my honesty about anything like that, big or small, sexual or non-sexual. Never.
Yeah.
And these are all things you've lied to me about, you know, habitually, compulsively.
Yeah.
These are things you've lied to me about going to the gym. She didn't really go to the gym when she said she went to the gym. You've lied to me about the book you were reading. She wasn't really reading the book. You have lied about everything. And in this way, your infidelity has it's been had a corrosive effect on our whole lives, and permanent effects on what you can do in terms of a career or getting married or having children. permanent long-term effects, even though, again, it was internet-based infidelity, but it was infidelity that went on from 8 a.m. in the morning until midnight, sometimes till 1 a.m.
I was with a good man.
Yeah.
I was with a man who cared about me and cared about my future. And instead
You betrayed me for a fantasy,
betrayed him.
for a masturbatory fantasy.
Yeah. And I don't like who I am today. I hate who I am today. I hate that I allowed myself to indulge in these fantasies. And I feel so bad that I was dishonest with you. I think I was practicing that all my life.
Yeah.
You are actually a good man. A good man is hard to find. Because it takes self-discipline, strength of will, to resist temptation, and to not let yourself just do whatever you desire. You are opposed to utilitarian thought, and you talked about that on your channel. I didn't learn that lesson. What's the harm of lying to your partner?
Yeah.
It's not only the harm inflicted on you, it's the harm that I inflict on myself, because I become a worse person for lying.